Good morning, everybody. We're live on our second session of an HOD special presentation. Unfortunately, right now I have something on my screen I'm trying to get rid of, but it's not going away. So anyway, so welcome everybody. We have a couple of hundred people joining us this morning with some of the best in the business, and we're delighted that they are with us. I'm really trying to get rid of this thing, but cannot get rid of it. After I bragged that I learned how to use all these things, I can't get rid of my Zoom webinar calculator thing. So, but anyway, we have some really great people joining us this morning. Our last panel, we really were trying to focus on very high-end properties, but in the end, we talked about a lot of different components of the business. This time we want to focus a little more on those properties that are 700 to 2 million, which is the majority of what our listings are. How do we maximize them? How do we use them? How do we get those listings? How do we go out and really talking about how we're going to be, farming for them? That's a really strange thing to say perhaps, but how do you farm? How do you get those listings? And then what you do on the listing appointment, and what do you do then to get it sold over our two panels today? And then Shannon Barr's with us, and she's going to do a presentation about things, because I get this question all the time. What can we be adding in our listing presentations for the 700 to $2 million range? What should be in the presentations? What do we need to provide for you? And you're going to tell us some of the things, these great speakers today. So let me begin about telling you the speakers that we have for the first panel this morning. Melanie Rice joins us from her office, is actually named Oceanfront, and it's in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And you think it's a resort market, but you probably didn't know that Virginia Beach is the largest city in Virginia and the 44th largest city in the country. So Melanie, you told me you're all ready to answer my question. And so let me ask you, your market, as I said, is a bit unusual because it is a beach community, but it's also filled with 450 full-time residents and part of a huge market, which is Hampton Roads. So tell me, what do you do in that market to get listings? How do you differentiate yourself in that market? Because you're dealing with different kinds of buyers and sellers, but what do you do to get the listing?
Right. Well, one thing that is unique about us is we don't have just the oceanfront. We have beautiful Crystal Lake. We're surrounded by so much water. Crystal Lake, the Lynn Haven River, and the Chesapeake Bay, and the Atlantic Ocean. So that expands our luxury listing market because we have so much water. People, their whole goal in life, it seems around here, is that they want to live near or on the water. So we are unique because we have a lot of water, which gives us more homes of distinction listings. And we're fortunate to have a lot of high-end glossy advertising. Believe it or not, print advertising here is still alive and well. Now, not the newspaper, but we have a magazine called Distinction that Howard Hanna advertises in. Very high-end coffee table magazine. We have, and that's every other month. We have a magazine called The North Ender, which is produced once a month, that Howard Hanna advertises in. And those two tools are incredibly powerful for us when we go on a listing appointment. It means a lot to the people. It gives great exposure, and it provides strength to our listing appointment. We also, what's unique to us is because we do have the oceanfront, Howard Hanna flies a banner on the airplanes, like you see with the advertising. There's the Geico, and we have a Howard Hanna banner. I haven't seen it yet this summer, but a lot of people, they're sitting on the oceanfront and they see the banner. We have a very strong Facebook page for our office, our oceanfront office, and we also have a marquee out front. We're on Pacific Avenue. Our roads are really named after, the Monopoly game. we don't have Boardwalk, but we have Atlantic, Pacific, Baltic, Arctic, and all of those. So we're right on Pacific Avenue. We have a big marquee out front. So people are driving by the busiest road in Virginia Beach ever. And we keep that marquee, it's not static. We change the marquee all the time. What our listings are, it shows that we're in business, shows we're alive, and people see it. Now they see it real quick, but they said, oh, there's another new listing up there. So
how do you use those? How do you talk about those on listing appointments though?
Right, well, that's what I was going to get to. We also have a foldover mailer, a great high-end Howard Hanna foldover mailer that's that I take on listing appointments with me. And we also advertise digitally in the airport. There's 5 agents that advertise in the airport. So we have a lot of travelers coming and going, and they see us. They see, oh, no other real estate company has the flying banner, has the marquee like we do, has the foldover mailer, and advertises at the airport. So when I go to the listing appointments, I show the sellers this, and that it really makes us unique. It catches their attention. Anything that shows that we're strong, we're in business, is just so helpful, Helen, for all the Hanna people that help us. The luxury properties for sale in Virginia Beach also pull from Richmond and Northern Virginia. So I explain to the sellers that we're not just our people here, the residents that are upsizing or downsizing. We are pulling from Richmond and Northern Virginia. They like to hear that we're advertising in other areas, that we pull from other areas. We have a slick website, and that's very, very important to them. Our area is steeped in tradition also from many generations of families that come and either they start by renting at the oceanfront, they fall in love with the big wide open beaches, our clean beaches, they turn into buyers, they eventually become sellers, and so the tradition continues with the families. And so when I go on a listing appointment, I point out all of these strong listing tools in the advertising. I emphasize that our buyers not just come from local, but they come from Northern Virginia and Richmond, some from Pennsylvania, some from Michigan, some from New York. I share stories of the listing appointments where I match the buyers and sellers together. My sphere is, I've lived here about 40 years. So I build up a sphere. I live close by to the oceanfront, and you add the consistent Howard Hanna advertising along with the slick website, we've got a great combination. All of these combined forms of advertising show that we're in business, we're strong, and we get the job done.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. So let's go to a totally different market for a second, if we can. Corinne Garfield, in our Solon office. So our Solon office has lots of properties in that higher end, but it's not known to be a high price market. It's not, people don't say, if I want to live in $1 million neighborhoods, I run to there. So Corinne has to sell all price ranges, but in the last couple of years, you've done a great job of really building yourself in that higher end market and taking over a lot of these important, every Friday I've gotten it for like 15 years now. Lots of people get it, but it's the 800 report, and it's every listing and every sale over 800. Don't ask, at some point that seemed an arbitrary number that was good. They tried to switch. Yes, can I hear you?
Pardon the interruption, but there are 3 questions based upon what Melanie has shared.
Okay, Melanie.
Melanie, if your market is not specifically a high-end, in quotes, market, but there are plenty of opportunities for high-end properties, how do you break into that market?
Melanie, can I jump you to Corinne, because that's really her question, because she did jump into that market. So do you mind if we give that to Corinne, and then we'll come back to the next question for Melanie after Corinne finishes? Is that all right? Okay.
That's great, but there is one other question for Melanie.
Okay.
Melanie, do the agents pay for the magazines and office marquee themselves, or does the office, or does Howard Hanna? How does that get taken care of?
It's a combination of Howard Hanna and the agents. The airport advertising is done by the Howard Hanna agents themselves. the marquee is up there, and the office pays for the letters and, wording to be changed all the time. So it's a combination. Now in the North Ender magazine, Howard Hanna does one great ad every month, but we also take out personal ads.
So I need to add here, as you're sitting there, it is different for market
Yes.
because it's based on what you pay for your HOD program. For instance, Virginia has a dual program of different levels. So
Exactly.
it's a little more complicated. Some places we don't have glossy magazines, other places we do. In Ohio, what do we use? It's Connections, isn't that what it's called? Or Currents? Arnie, in the East in Ohio, what's it called? Currents?
I didn't.
Is it Currents? Yeah, anyway, I think it's Currents, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so we have to use different things in different markets, yeah. So.
Exactly, Helen. And we have homes of distinction dues that a certain set of homes of distinction agents pay into also for the magazines. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but as I said, it differs from market to market. That also differs from market to market because there you have two levels, nobody else does, that you can pay a higher level, et cetera.
Right,
yeah.
we can pay a higher level, but it works for everybody. It's very fair.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's go to Corinne and let her answer that big question, which is, how do you, in a regular market, how do you jump and take control of that market of 750, 700, 800, 900, a million? How do you do that? And what tools did you do to get them and then to get the listings?
Okay, good morning. So one of the aspect of the communities we have in Solon in the specific price range is they're very targeted. There's not many. There is Thornberry, there is Signature, and then there is a few more. There are a couple of community magazines that started, and two of them, and I started advertising in them a few years back. I had stopped because I know residents in those communities that didn't see, a great value in those magazines, but then they started again this year, and they're taking on a different momentum. So they're expensive to be in, but I thought it would be important to be in. One of them, I'm in the page that actually has the sales for every month, sales, new listings. So I'm under that page, plus an ad in the community magazine. So I started doing more of that. I'm also a member of the golf club in Signature. So I started being more socially involved again. I used to do that. I had stopped and I'm back into it. So I think it's not just one thing. It's being really involved in the community. My son started playing golf in that golf club as well. So I think slowly but surely it started, really taking a whole nice momentum for me. And one of the things I really started doing as well is paying attention in other marketplace through Instagram, especially how people are doing, what are they doing differently? So Instagram has been really critical for me, paying attention to, telling homeowners when I have a listing appointment that each property is very unique and you have to focus, and you can't just say, oh, granite countertops. That's just a given if you're going to, have a high-end property. So being very detailed and spending extra money and not being afraid of spending extra money on the materials, on the photography, and on videos to really highlight what's important about this specific property. But I've been promoting all my tools through Instagram and social media, and that's been really helpful. So it's a combination of being involved and marketed in these community magazines that I'm lucky they have in these two, Thornberry and Signature of Solon, but also promoting it via social media marketing. And I've done a few sponsored ads that I think are running constantly that I'm not always seeing, but I've been called on another appointment and somebody keeps seeing that particular sponsored ad promoted all the time. So it's just always, being out there. And the mailers, my quantum digital marketing mailers, I've been doing that for years in some of these communities, and you can't just expect results within a year. It's just the repetition over, time that really, really, really works. So
Thank you. Well, another question came in that I think is important to address. And that is, if you're not, and I will say this exactly as it is said in the question, if you haven't lived in an area for 40 years and you're not 60 years old, how do you break into that high-end market, okay? And Corinne, you said you've been in the business 20 years, but you have gradually taken it up a step every couple of years. And so would anybody that's on right now like to add anything into that? Because I don't think you have to be 60 years old. I don't think you have to be, if you were on the last panel, if you were last discussion also, you saw we had some young people that had been second generation, some that came into it new, and certainly we'll look at doing one just for this question. But anybody have any thoughts they'd like to add to tell people? I think it's a big question of using the tools that you have, as Corinne mentioned, and also Melanie. Anybody else want to add any advice on that, or offer to talk to somebody who was looking to how to grow their career at this point?
Well, I have two things I can share. One is I wear my name tag, even to the grocery store.
Great.
And and even our high end here, we have $200,000 condos of, high-rise condos that actually are luxury, even though it's not the price range. So I'm meeting people all the time, but I also live on a road called the Feeder Road at the north end. And I go, my car is parked in front of my house, but it's on the Feeder Road. So I open my trunk a lot to take my signs out, and I have my signs right there. People are walking by and they go, "Oh, you're with Howard Hanna," or we used to be William E. Wood, but now we're Howard Hanna. "You're with Howard Hanna." And so we start a conversation. So it's not necessarily the advertising, even though that's such a strong tool. It's yourself and how you are available to the public. And so I start these conversations with the people on the road, and there you go. "How long have you been in the business?" "Oh, Howard Hanna sold my neighbor's house." That's how I continue, because once you listed and sold a luxury home, you're out of business again. And so you have to keep constantly marketing yourself. So the name tag and just them seeing my for sale signs in my car.
I'd like to add that I think being social is very important, but also knowing the inventory, because I can't tell you how many times I might be in a social situation, but people will bring up the house around the corner. And if I can say, "Yeah, I toured it and it had blah, blah, blah," or whatever, just being very knowledgeable, then people respond to that.
I have to second that. I definitely have to second that. You have to know your inventory, because if you are in a social setting and people do bring up, other addresses, you need to know them. I do make a point of going to other houses, even if I don't have a buyer, as a preview. It's good. It shows you other properties, other options, and you always have that in your head as kind of your inventory.
Yeah, I think it's critical to know your market and to know almost in details. This house sold, after, a week, even if it was in your listing and it was in a multiple, and then this is what happened, and the buyer is from this area, and people like to know the details and who's moving in without being too nosy. You can find out the details, and they really appreciate that you're the expert and you really know the backhand story of, their neighborhood.
Oh, Helen, you're muted.
Actually, Helen, you are not muted, but we still cannot hear you.
She muted up.
Yep, we can see your lips moving, but we cannot hear your words coming out of your mouth. It may be your AirPods have disconnected. Well, we all know she's talking to us. Thanks for staying tuned, everybody. I'm sure she'll problem solve it in just a moment. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add to how you particularly broke into the high-end market while Helen problem solves?
Right. I'd like to add something.
Go for it.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I think, you know, that the best thing, the way I looked at it when I've been doing this 35 years, and when I started, I occasionally got a high-end listing in my community, which is Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights. And I think the best thing we can do to further success is to deliver exceptional service. I think that's really the most important thing that we can do to build our business. It's like building blocks, and the more we do, the more we're going to do. But I think it's always going back to the basic of servicing that client. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Anyone else have any helpful hints? Linda, you look like you have something you want to say. You're muted right now, so go ahead, unmute so we can hear.
Yeah, there. I ditto that. I think the biggest thing is I've been in the business 40 years, so I've been around a long time. And when I started, it was trying to do above and beyond and remember all the details and keep reporting. It's back to the basics. Your high-end buyers are tight on time usually, very decisive. So when they ask you something to do, you need to do it. You need to have good materials. You need to know the products. And then as time goes on, you have to remember all those sales because the new buyers want to know everything that's happened even in the past 3 to 5 years. So you really have to know past inventory, future inventory, and just give really, really good service and touch base with them all the time. It's back to the basics. Instagram and social media and all that is wonderful, but I think you really need to couple it with constant intervention with those buyers and sellers. To me, that's critical right now. They need to hear from you. That's my thoughts.
I also agree. I think servicing your client is number one because you want them to be a repeat client, and many of these high-end buyers are. We've sold a couple of houses that people did not necessarily want to move, but something great came on the market, and calling them and letting them know. And all of a sudden, you know, you're selling them homes of distinction as well as listing their house. So that repeat business, I think, is also huge to help grow your business.
Great
Can you
advice.
hear me
Helen,
now?
are you back? You're back, Helen. You're good.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. Well, lots of answers on that, but I do think it's a good topic for the future. But I will say the one thing, so many of you were saying that, you know, touring is so incredibly important, and it really is. And what I said was, I used to say agents had to tour, new agents should tour 70 houses in 70 days, because what do you have to talk about except what this kitchen looks like? So, and if you just try to do it online, I think it's a mistake, and a lot of our industry has gone that way. So let's go back, if we can, let's go back to you, Meredith, because Meredith Ward is second generation. She's in a high-end market, but she did not start with her. I said earlier jokingly that, you know, she has been around since she was a little kid. So, so she learned some things, but I think what's interesting was she started on her own, and now she and her mother have joined as a team. But I think you've added a lot of things to your mother. They've always been big HOD users, and they do a great job using it. They do a great job on listing presentations, working it and selling it. But you've added some things, I think, that perhaps, you know, a new generation, not younger agents, but the generation of agents now who's succeeding, no matter how old they are, how long they've been in the business, are learning and trying new things. So can you enlighten us to some of the things you do?
Yeah, I mean, this past year, we've really started adding Matterport tours, virtual tours to our HOD listings. That technology is amazing, that someone can walk through the house without being there, which I think is particularly important, especially in Pittsburgh, for your out-of-town buyers. UPMC brings a lot of doctors, Google, Uber. So a lot of those high-end buyers can start to look at a house without actually being here. So the Matterport tour has been an amazing tool for us. We have had a couple really private sellers who don't want to use them because obviously you lose a lot of privacy with those tours. But for the most part, everyone's really excited by that technology, and it's been a great addition to our listings. And also the glossy brochures, I think, are one of our strongest marketing pieces. They always impress sellers and are great for buyers to take with them. We took over a listing from a co-broke, an HOD house, and she had like a 1-page brochure printed on regular paper, not even cardstock. And we walk in with examples of these glossy brochures, which just, I mean, you can't compete with them. Thank you, Brad and Roberta and Shannon, for all the work you do on those. So, you know, I think going back to just that old school paper marketing is still just an amazing touch point for buyers to take with them, and a piece of the sellers also just really enjoy having those as well. But Matterport tours and virtual tours have been our biggest addition this past year in this COVID era to our listings.
Okay, we have a question. I'm going to save it for a minute though, but to ask all of you, how many of you today have been doing Matterport, or did virtual open houses, or still doing virtual open houses? Anybody finding success in that in the high-end market?
Yes, I'm doing it 3 in the last 2 months, and I find a couple things it does. It shows the seller that you're going a little further than other people, and people do like that platform to view a house. I'm getting good return on it. It's not inexpensive. It's $350 to $400 in our market, but I think it's money well spent.
I would also add, not everything is for every listing, but you also have to look at what you need to get rid of in your presentation. See what I'm saying? What doesn't work anymore? I mean, like some people have mentioned newspapers. You know, in most of our markets, they just don't give us any value. In some markets, they still do, but in most, they don't. So in newspapers, if that market is, you're saying, okay, we're not going to do this now. So I think you have to look carefully and see what you're saying and get rid of things that don't have value anymore.
Helen, I do think sellers love though when we advertise in the Wall Street Journal, which, you know, HOD and Luxury Profile gives us that that opportunity, and a great way just to expand advertising.
Yeah, let's face it, that the plain dealer does the plain dealer exist anymore? It's a couple times a week, I think. I still think the pilot still is in Virginia Beach, and probably in Skinny Atlas. Do we have a local newspaper there that's effective? I know the Syracuse newspaper we still use, but I'm not sure why. But I do think, yes, some of those other, the Wall Street Journal, I really like. We're looking at doing an edition that, you know, of a whole page of ours in fall, and we may move it up to August depending on what happens in each market on the pandemic. So we just had a question that really goes to something Ernie Cahoon is great at, and that is these high-end markets, houses, they come on the market, and some of them come on at too high a price. Has anybody noticed that sellers, the higher end the house, the more the sellers think the value of the house is? Is that pretty common?
Yes.
So how do you address that as the house stays on the market? Well, Ernie last week told me that he has a plan that he has developed that he uses from the beginning. So can you tell us about that, Ernie?
Right. So what I did here is just I prepared my thoughts on my marketing strategy. So I've broken this into 3 topics. So the first are some different comments. Second, the 21-day price reduction strategy, and that's really the meat of what I'm going to talk about. 21-day price reduction strategy, and then the last part, just simply bullets. I like to get across to my seller clients within the first 21 days. Comments, the comments that I do, I'm pretty good at getting a reduction within 21 days. So let me start. So general comments, I think we need to put ourselves in our seller's shoes, because they don't understand this, and that's why they're hiring. As Helen once said, we have a lot of homes for sale. Our sellers only have one. So as soon as I get the listing agreement signed, and before I leave the house, I start talking about a price reduction. So I plant it after it's signed that we're going to look at price, and I say, if we don't talk about this, I'm not doing my job. So here we go. So the 21-day, my 21-day price reduction strategy is simple. 3 points. At 10 days, if we don't have an offer, I call them up and I say, look, I'm concerned that we don't have an offer. but we still have 11 more days to test the market out. And at 15 days, I call them and I say, you know, the time is approaching that we're going to need to talk about market repositioning. Not quite yet. We have 7 more days. And then at 21 days, I tell them, look, this is time. National Association of Realtor Statistics support. If you've had 10 showings or 21 days, you're due for price reduction. So that's, I'll repeat it again. So at 10 days, I prepare them. We're halfway through. At 15 days, I tell them we have 1 more week. At 21 days, I tell them we need reductions. We've had a lot of dialogue before that 21 days is up. So now let's help me plant the seed and get further with it. So the first thing is, I think communication is everything, either by text, verbally, or by email. You can never communicate too much. And we need to convince that seller we are. Second point, we need to create a competition over this next point, and I think this is really a good, strong point. Have the buyer meet the market, and it hasn't worked. Now we have to meet the market. Does that make sense? So we're setting up the expectation. What we've done by trying to get your price isn't working. Another point I always throw out is delays are deadly.
Good point.
As painful as it is, the market has...
Ernie, can you speak up a little bit? Some
painful,
people are having trouble hearing you. Thank you.
as painful as it is, the market has affected our home, and we need to respond. At this point, it becomes a business decision. It could be, it's an asset, it could be your largest asset. It's no longer personal or emotional. This is a business decision. So I try and draw them away from the emotion. The last point is long market time is a recipe for the seller writing the buyer a check at the end. You don't make more money by dragging out market time. So those are the points I want to get across just real quick here. Just a few more points. Always get inside of their head. This allows you to overcome objections, and that's really how we sell homes, to overcome objections. Think outside the box and be creative. If the negotiating gets tough, check and then come back to it. I think there's very little that can't be overcome by communication. Thank you.
Thanks, Ernie. Good. So a couple of questions have come in that I really think are great to answer. First of all, Cindy Sinceri just said she wanted us to know that she had a $1.4 million virtual sale on Hoodridge. You don't know where that is, but I do. And that she's only using Matterport now. And I think that's important because a lot of people on the phone may not know how many sales we had virtually. And it's an interesting number for us to try to look up and tell you, though we can only tell. I don't think we have anywhere on our form that says, was this a virtual sale? But 1.4 is pretty good, and Matterport has made a difference. But as I said, I think you have to look at what you get rid of if you're adding Matterport or something else. So, and then Deanna would like to know, she asked the question, how many printed pieces do you suggest? Now, I'm not sure whether that means do you print 500 or whether it means do you have 7 different ones, but just talk about your printed pieces. Everybody could add it just a little bit in there about what you do, the brochures that Meredith talked about. Melanie talked about some of the pieces that she used. So could you just give us any insight into how many pieces you're printing? And
Helen, I'll respond to that. So what we do, and I partner with Chris Jurgensen, but what we do is when somebody leaves the home, we want them to be prepared. And what we find are floor plans are very important. An improvement list is very important. And then the mobile listing, printout is very important. So they leave with the floor plans, the improvements, and the mobile listing printout. That really gives people a pretty good platform to go back and review what the house was. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else?
We also include an improvement list on all of our listings. So the brochure and improvement list, and most likely a survey we find is very important in our area too. That someone wants to know their property lines. So if that's available, we always include the survey.
I'd like to add, I do a full color brochure for every house, no matter what price range. And I actually had a seller once in a low price range who was from out of the area, and she had a friend in a higher price range who listed her house and was shocked that the agent in her area didn't do that for a higher end house. So I feel it's important.
Yeah, it's worth it. Yeah.
What I always tell sellers is people may look at 5 or 6 houses in a day and try to remember which one had that great kitchen. And so I want them to walk away with the brochure and say, this is the one we want.
So
Ellen,
I would add, I don't love, yes.
I'll also include a narrative. If the property is extensive and large, and if it might be like an estate or maybe a high-end horse farm, I may include like a 3-paragraph narrative that highlights the real special features of the home in some of the living areas, and then take it outside to include, you know, if there's an indoor arena or a barn or, you know, a training center, just to kind of bring that buyer right back to that property. If they have seen 10 or 12 properties, my narrative kind of brings them back to it and they remember more about it. Those details do help.
So I have a question because I could be wrong. I said that once. I don't say it all the time, but I could be wrong. I've never liked Ernie mentioned the multi-list printout. I've never liked the multi-list printout because it shows things like the 8.5 by 11 bedroom, which I've joked for years is like a picture frame size. You know, it reinforces the taxes. I prefer to present sheet or a brochure. But how do you all feel? Ernie mentioned it. Do you think people want to see that?
Yes.
Do they want to see
Yes.
the multi-list printout, Linda?
Yes, absolutely. Because with our high-end properties, they want to know what those taxes are. Because sometimes the taxes are anywhere from $75,000 to $200,000 a year. So they need to know that going right in, especially if they're from out of the area. So they want that ML printout and understand everything. I try to give them on the high end, the colored brochure, the survey, and instead of, I used to write lengthy things about the house, not anymore. It's all bullets, bullets, bullets. They want to know the improvements quick and
It's
fast.
interesting.
And not lengthy, not lengthy. So the survey in a lot of pictures, Matterport to me is huge. And I also use the drone because I have a lot of high end on the lake. So we need the drone pictures showing the waterfront, the distance to the village, just as much possible information in those brochures. Because if they're looking at, if they're jumping from Canandaigua to Skinny Atlas and different lakes, we need to give them as much information of what's here, what's available here, plus everything on the house.
Well, we've got a lot of great questions, but why don't we go to you, Linda, because you haven't been on yet, and we'll come back to the questions because we have a lot of questions about keeping the listing and keeping people satisfied. But Linda has an unusual, I started to say before that each week I get a list of everything over 800 listings and sales and closed and the whole ball of wax. And I don't know why that number is 800, just an arbitrary number I chose years ago. But and last week, actually, Meredith had the highest sale of the week on Friday with $1.75 million. And Linda, I had already asked her to be on this panel about listings between 7 and 2 million, but she listed a property for 600 or for 6 million, not 600, 6 million, right? And so Linda really is in, and don't anybody get mad at me, but it might be the most beautiful small town in New York. Okay. Saratoga is beautiful too. So I'm going to get in trouble no matter what I do, but it's just, it's really, I mean, I go to Saratoga more than I ever go to Skinny Atlas, but Skinny Atlas, strange name. But it is this beautiful lake with high-end houses, but regular neighborhoods also. And it's a resort like Virginia Beach, but it's also a suburb of Syracuse and people live there full time. So tell us about your approach to listings in a market like that. And it's a small market, but you control it. And we have a great little office there on the lake. And so can you just tell us about what you do on those listing appointments, and then go into the question of how you keep them and let everybody else add into that. So, okay, Linda. Mm-hmm.
I've been around a long time, and I didn't start at the high end. When I first came, I had to pay my dues. And I'm going to share how I ended up with my biggest big waterfront 24 years ago. Is I helped the cleaning lady of that house. And then when the woman of that mansion was going to list it, she said, Linda Roach helped me buy my $75,000 house to keep me in this community. And I never forgot that. And I think we all need to remember that is where we all started. And so what my biggest thing here is I've known the inventory. Our inventory is small. There's only 1 or 2 or 3 big ones that sell a year. So it's different here. You might carry a house for 2 years or 3 years before it sells. And then it moves up when the new ones come on. Skinny Atlas is a small town. So it's not like we have 50 high-end houses on the waterfront. We don't. Our buyers come from all over, but they usually have a tie back to Skinny Atlas, that they grew up here or something, something brings them here. Lord's Camp as a child or whatever. My biggest thing is through the years of the people that I've sold, I always keep connecting with them. Phone calls. They like to talk to you. It's not even a note card. They like to hear from you. They like to know what's going on in the community, even if they've left here. They just like a phone call. That's huge with them. Sometimes the properties you might feel that are a little bit higher, and then we just have to work it out when we negotiate it. The people are really strong people, personalities, and you just have to not lose control and just be calm when they sometimes blow at you. Why isn't the house sold? Why isn't it being shown more times? We might only get 5, 6, 7, 8 showings. It's not like we're getting 20 or 30 showings on these big houses, because they range from 4 million to 8.4 million. Those waterfronts. Our waterfronts are very high now, but people are flying in, and that's why the Matterport, the drone, the brochures, you have limited time when they come in, so you better give them the best. So it's constant keeping in touch with everyone. I think that's been the big thing through the years. And they want everything else that you have to offer today. They want social, Instagramming, they want it all, plus the basics. So my biggest thing is you have to keep connecting. Even though we have so much social media right now, those people want to hear your voice. They want to know what's going on. They want to know everything in town that's going on, and you better give them the answers. I don't know. That's where I'm at. That's how it's worked for me.
You guys must be the best in the business, because I'm telling you, I'm overwhelmed with questions. So I'm just going to read them through a little bit, and some of them have similar things, but many high-priced houses take a while to sell. We address that. And how do you do? And they notice that you know, a lot of them have a lot of price reductions, and I think Ernie's really plan addresses that so that it's not a whole bunch of them, but it's a thought-out plan. But also the question is, how do you feel the cost of new construction is affecting resale pricing and the markets in general?
On new construction?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We don't.
Is it affecting prices? You don't have it, but those of you that do have new construction, I know we have some. I know we have it in Solon, I think, at least last time I checked. But is it affecting the price of existing houses?
No. There's really little left in Solon, very little. So it's not really affecting, and new construction dollar per square footage you know, a lot of my clients, you know, that are in the 800 or 700 to 900, the reality by the time I tell them you're done in your landscaping and you're finishing a basement, you're going to be so much more, you know, the amount you really spend. So it helps me actually feel the
Yeah. I would say we have some markets that are adversely affected by it. People are paying, go to Meredith for a second, is I think there are people that are going farther north and spending an awful lot of money that used to be a buyer that was closer in, whether it be Fox Chapel or other areas. Yeah. So do you see that? Is that?
Yeah, we definitely see people going farther north to get new construction. We've also sold, I think 2 summers ago, we sold a $900,000 property that was torn down the next day. Because there's just not a lot of land left to develop on. So we're seeing more and more houses.
Yeah.
We're seeing more and more houses being torn down to get that new construction.
Anybody else want to add anything on that?
Ellen, in the Saratoga market, new construction actually does help me because the new construction homes are much more expensive and they're smaller. So they're not getting a bang for the buck. And it's something I've always used when I was in new construction initially. I went and did residential resale at the high end because they were getting a better buy. And the homes that are a little bit older, of course, I think they're better built. So the consumer does recognize that.
Right. Okay. Okay. From Christine. Christine wants to know, do we have any more suggestions for beyond communication being key? But how do you keep them satisfied during long periods of listings, which some of these houses are taking longer? There's no question about it. How do you keep them satisfied? Anybody have any other suggestions?
I do. I think statistics. I think statistics. Show them, show them the showing log. Show them what's happening or not happening.
I also think just communication, even if there's nothing to report, checking in with them, if it's once a week, is so appreciative.
I think that checking in is a really important part of it. Any of you use buy side?
Yes.
Yeah. Who just said yes? I'm going to close my questions for a second, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it for the listing appointments mostly to get to show all these, pre-registered buyers that we have gathered, through the, and that's really important. And that map, the heat map, is a visual aid. That's really.
They love that heat map. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We're very visual, and you made a point earlier, Helen. You have to look on your list of tools. What do you take out if you're adding things? Because it can become overwhelming. Appointment and telling them about all the things I'm going to do for the high-end seller. And I'm kind of jumping off the subject here for a minute on communication and how to keep them satisfied. But if you really get and marketing for the property, and it may take a little bit longer, you don't have to throw everything out of your bag up front. So you have more tools you can implement, 30 days in, days in. So I think it's critical to have customized plans so you're not, out of what to do.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the Matterport tour is great. It's not the most user-friendly on an iPhone. And for the millennials, which you'll be surprised how many are buying the $700,000 and $800,000 properties. I find the videos made through a combination of drone and, and myself speaking about the property. You can do a combo video is very powerful. So I've been working on them a lot. So to go back to how to keep everybody happy is just see what is getting done out there and keep adding them. Your toolbox.
Yeah. So we have a question that adds to that then. Nettie Moore is an agent. That's not her name now. She's married, but and she changed her name. It's pretty amazing. She's young. She's under 30. She changed her name in the middle of 2 years into her career or something. But she asked the question about her. She doesn't think that some of her sellers think that Matterport is flashy enough. They want more flashy marketing. Yeah.
I agree.
Which goes to what you said.
Yeah. I'm working on, even for my listing appointment, since I have a little more time right now, I'm going to do videos of all the listings I've sold with the music background with a drone flying into the subdivision where these properties were sold. So it shows the lifestyle, you know, with like the clubhouse, the golf course, or Thornberry can be something else. But yes, last year there are some amazing production companies out there that can do great videos for the listings or for yourself, marketing yourself at price market.
That's a great,
Again, you can't do everything. Linda?
there's a new camera that is better than Matterport, and I just had it done on one of the waterfront listing. It's a new e-camera, and it's much user-friendly, and it does all the floor plans, shows everything. So I'm looking into use that. So it's, in fact, the camera is $3,300, and I'm almost to the point. It's probably worth it to invest in it or help somebody that's doing the drone pay the camera, because then it does everything, every floor measurement, everything. So just food for thought, because Matterport is trickier. People are complaining about it. So this new e-camera, so everybody, you know, ask people about it. But walking through and explaining the property on the virtual tours is a great way too. So just wanted to interject about the new camera coming out.
Good. All right, lots of good stuff, and we're a few minutes over time, but that is okay. And I hope you're all going to stay with us as we go to Shannon Barr, who's going to talk about what to use on your presentation. And hopefully, I think it's important to remember lots of good stuff from this first panel. And I'm having such a great learning experience myself that I'm just going to continue having something like this every month. So if you're interested, let us know the topics you'd like to hear. But I wanted Shannon to focus on the last one. We focused a lot about a high-end marketing, but the question I've gotten is, how do I have a better advantage on getting listings in my presentation when I go on a house at 850? Okay, when I go on a house at 950, what are the tools that I can use? Not just programs we have, but also what are those tools that I can use in my presentation to make me look better? So Shannon Barr.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Shannon.
Hope everybody's having a great day. Yes, and as Helen says, listening to all of you experts is truly remarkable and really makes for great note-taking for as we move forward and process some stuff. So I'm going to share my screen with all of you. It is an adaptation of the last webinar we had, as Helen mentioned, but more focus on the listing tools that help better set you apart to get that listing, and then we can idea share from there. So hang tight 1 second. Can everybody see my, just give me a shout out, Helen, if you could see my PowerPoint.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thanks. So everyone, we're just going to dive into what your marketing portfolio can look like walking into a listing. And from hearing from you expert panelists, I know that you all have a different way to talk your listing strategy that can include those design brochures and postcards, the social media spotlight, and allowing you guys to maximize your marketing materials when going in front of a client to get that listing. One of the ways that you can start is by using Hannah presentations. We know that we have a definite core pages devoted to things for homes of distinction, like the marketing strategies. What you're seeing on my screen right now is a mix of price points in the tiers available for the PA Midwest market, but we do have documentation devoted to all markets, not just PA Ohio, that we are constantly in update of, that showcase things like that marketing portfolio or that online dedication to what we're doing for the high-end market specifically. And when we put this together, I know that there's a lot of that comparables and the statistics available that kind of set you guys apart to be able to talk about the listing and what we're able to do for the high-end specifically. Paired with a lot of what we call multi-generational marketing, this truly is your portfolio of product, of social capability, of sharing, of communication for your listing. So, you know, we not only showcase on social media platforms with the ability to have you all sharing, you've all at least talked about once or twice those high gloss brochures. You don't need to print 500. I think that was a question that came up, but walking into it, showing a seller that, yes, you're going to have these fully designed and with that beautiful photography that you're all talking about, a way to set your listing apart with a story written or highlighted bullet points. There's video components, all in tune to that multi-generational marketing, that those spokes, if you will, of marketing that you can showcase for your high end, including things like e-brochures, that electronic opportunity that links not only your high gloss printed pieces, but your digital pieces. You can take them live on this site as you're sitting in a listing appointment. And this shows only high-end material that they can see as a seller of their high-end property, what that advantage looks like and what that quality looks like. Recently, we have Howard Hanna Luxury Instagram page. This is dedicated to homes of distinction and homes of distinction only. So this is allowing us a huge social positioning for the luxury properties that Howard Hanna showcases to the world. And we're building that library now. We had launched it a little bit before all of this COVID had begun, and we're building a library so that it's shareable for all of you specialists. You have the ability to go on now and like the page and follow it and share listings. So reposting and talking about things and what you're going to do as you're in that listing appointment to win that listing. We have the luxury channels devoted to these properties. One of the things that we're excited to announce is we're working on a online and printable listing, new material for just Howard Hanna Homes of Distinction, that when I show you Luxury Portfolios version, they have a web version and we will too. It will highlight everything from what a specialist, you, the agent, looks like, and how our affiliations channel the right buyer or the international audience, and that extension for leading real estate companies. This listing component will touch on all of the Howard Hanna financials, the local leaderships, the relocation networks, and our advantage. And this will look at the global exposure available through our partnership with Luxury Portfolio. This is a lot like right now we have an online piece that I will show you quickly how you get there. It's on the outdated side. That's why we're updating all of this to be electronic for you to walk into a listing appointment, show that wealth of marketing portfolio from things that they could do in your market specific to direct mail and the brochures we've talked about, magazine advertising, and in addition to Matterport, maybe some of that custom video. This will take a deep dive onto the digital marketing platforms that we have for Howard Hanna. And one of the things that will integrate into this is our updated howardhanna.com/homes of distinction webpage that is newly updated and shows and highlights all of the luxury advantages to listing and selling with Howard Hanna. We will go through all, it's showcasing all of the Howard Hanna markets, so you see where we are nationally ranked, and then with our partnership, our global reach now and how it takes shape, and 800 plus major cities that we are able to say we showcase and highlight and market to the world. So when we're going on a listing appointment, we can talk about the advantages of not only you, the agent, being able to brand this Howard Hanna or Homes of Distinction, but that you, the agent, has a one-stop situation for submitting your listing and for being able to track that listing and talk back and forth to the marketing teams available. And New York is not fully rolled out yet. We are actually building this in the back end as we speak, so that will be coming to you all. It's a great resource for you guys to review tiers with your clients if you're not, if you're ever wondering what's included in a listing. This is reporting features that you're allowed to give your, that you could share with your agents on, or excuse me, your clients on what has been done for their listing. So submitting a listing to us, running reports of what's been done for your listing is giving you the advantage to be in the know up to the minute for you and for your client. And then finding resources available for anything related to Howard Hanna and the Homes of Distinction program, including luxury portfolio to set you apart for that listing appointment. It's all there, giving you that added benefit to our exclusive exposure and what we can do for a listing. Additionally, over top of Homes of Distinction, as you know, we are connected to leading real estate companies of the world and Luxury Portfolio International. And they always include these tools. And I think I paused for a second just saying, when I was listening to some of you talk, your strategy can include all of these things, but you don't have to roll them out all at once. Taking time out that says, when I'm going to a listing appointment, I'm going to use this tool number 1. It's a Lux introduction letter. I'm walking into a listing appointment, but I'm going to send this letter out from and endorsed by Luxury Portfolio International, telling them how I am the #1 agent for the job for this listing, and they have it before they walk in the door, is a huge endorsement or an intro for you as a co-branded opportunity. They have things like the listing presentation box that are customized that you can send to clients or walk into a listing appointment with, that has samples of the marketing pieces that you're able to participate in, like Wall Street Journal or some of the magazines they have available. And they have a smaller scaled down presentation folio that has your bio and an intro letter that can be directly shipped to clients. These are other things that are available that kind of just announce you and set you apart from any other real estate agent in the business. Tool number 4 is a brand brochure. So I just talked about this on the Howard Hanna level. You can take them to luxury listing presentation and walk them through all of the approaches that luxury portfolio has that we can integrate, because you and Howard Hanna are internationally affiliated, giving all of that quality and high level exposure for that listing. And you can maybe even do this midway through your listing as a connection piece to your client. And remembering to get there through Lux Exchange, you guys have access to the back end where you control what goes on with your maintenance and your listing. You can see the toolboxes available to you to get to those things, like the presentation box, like that Wall Street Journal advertising through Co-op, like the Lux Tours, which is a video component for those higher end listings, or even the agent listing appointment. And again, the most important thing is when we communicate to share all of this stuff with you, where do we find it? We find it on GoHanna, because we can connect right through to the new luxury admin site, to luxury portfolio, to everything e-brochures, even to this new howardhanna.com Homes of Distinction webpage. We've updated it. Any user or any one of you in your current location will be able to see highlighted properties right there on that page. And then in going into a listing appointment, making sure that we are capitalizing on the digital presence. We have blogs associated specifically with Howard Hanna. Luxury Portfolio posts a blog. This is a connection for you and your client, just a shareable opportunity. Being mobile, using the reports. In my last presentation, and there is a PowerPoint and information on things like trend graphics, but Lux Analytics is another reporting function that gives an international scope to how the listing is doing online and how the property is being viewed and showcased. So another touch point that sets you apart with the ability to report to your sellers. And then of course our social media presence, not going away, only increasing every day. Facebook, we highlight Homes of the Week. We highlight our blog articles that are specific to luxury. So they're not only for Howard Hanna to share, but for you agents to piece as a connection to your story of why you're the expert in Homes of Distinction. I know I talk fast, but I like to contain it all. I share all of this with all of you so that you have what you need to revert back to it to tell the story. And I'm looking forward to more with Helen when we can showcase the new listing presentation that I just highlighted to all of you. So I will answer any questions or whatever you guys need, and I will share this for you to reference back to so that you know how to get to Howard Hanna's full library of information, as well as even the Luxury Portfolio International connection.
Okay, we have questions for you, Shannon.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay, I saw it before, now I can't find it, but somebody was nice enough to send us a question saying, you referenced that we had some statistical data for Pennsylvania and Ohio. Do we also have it for New York, Virginia, Michigan, et cetera? Okay.
Yes, I don't like to be specific when I put slides together, but it was quick for me to just throw those ones in there. We do have specific statistics, and we were working on updating all of those for HANA presentations as well.
Yeah.
And we have
All right.
market share.
And I apologize that I can't tell who sent that because I can't find that again one right now, but oh, it's because I answered it by type to saying I'd find out. And are you saying that the HOD site will be able to, this is from Christine McGee again, that HOD site will be able to run a report of what's been done for my listing?
Is that a New York
can do
agent? I'm
that?
sorry. Yes.
Pardon?
You can do that.
You can do that. I think we all know how.
I think, Helen, I have a great idea. The next webinar we do, we might do the highlight of how you track your listing. So
Yeah.
for New York, we are rolling this out. I've been working with Adam and Kathleen to build that into our platform. We have an HOD luxury admin site that is where you submit listings. Right now, some of you in New York do it as a paper trail. We used to do that here in PA, and Vera's familiar with it. We used to do it in Ohio the same way, in Michigan, but now it's all online. So once you submit a listing to that platform, we're able to track that listing, and when we do any kind of marketing or advertising, we report inside there. So what you're able to do is then run a report that showcases the date, the time, whenever those things were highlighted, and you're able to give that to your seller. So I think it's a really appropriate next step for maybe showcasing the how-tos and an in-depth look at that.
Could you maybe send out specific instructions to everybody that's on the phone today, or all HOD members,
Sure.
to tell them how to do that? Because I didn't know we could do that either, and it's great because that really addresses back to the questions that we've had more questions coming in on Ernie and on the pricing and what if your
Sure.
sellers I can hold out don't want a price reduction, but also how you keep your sellers communicating with them about all that you're doing for them. And that's another great way that you can do it. Yeah.
Right.
So that's,
yes.
so,
I
are
can do
there,
that.
I'm gonna see if there are any more questions? Oh, doesn't Shannon look fabulous? Great information.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, okay, another one from Teresa. Is there still a special letter intro and black box mailing that agents are using? I think it's a gray box today.
It's
but I
now
think you
gray.
mentioned that.
Right. So
But that's
LPI,
interesting.
they did a rebrand. So their black box turned to a steel gray block box, which is also very slick and still looks just as high end. And what you're referencing right now is the Lux introduction letter that I referenced. You have 25 of those as specialists that you can go and log in at no cost. You can set one of those letters up, and it will go out to your client, and it will say, "Dear Helen, Shannon Barr is the best agent for the job," essentially. I'll send you an example. How's that sound? So you can see how that looks, and you can read what the template is, and it is signed and endorsed by LPI. In addition to that, we have other things available, but those are a really cool component that I think Helen can agree set you apart. Branded Howard Hanna luxury portfolio, nobody else has.
And I think the nice thing about the box is that I have a box. I used to have the black one, now I have the gray one, but I have a box and I just reuse the box.
Mhm.
Right. So.
Yep, good tip.
Yeah, and so so you don't have to have 20 of them. You may have to have the letter done, but you don't need the whole box presentation, every time you go on a listing. Now, if you go on a $6 million listing like Linda,
Right.
you might want to leave it there forever or whatever with them. But so
Yeah, I
good.
think
All right, so we've got more panels, more questions, and so we're going to go to some of the panels, and if we could during this next panel, as I introduce you, give me a little bit of trying to introduce, talking a little bit about how you keep those sellers happy during the time, how you keep them, are they asking for more marketing to keep their price reductions? So if we can address some of those. But I'd like to start off with what has to be my story of the month, maybe the last 6 months. And that is, I think she's on right now. Kelly's in Ellen. Kelly actually Kelly Zanella is actually, she's from our office in Saratoga Springs, which is horse country, and it is also a very beautiful place. And the races, I'll miss my race breakfast next month being there, but it's a beautiful place with a lot of diverse properties also, and having a sort of a mixed group of people. They even have things called track housing. But when I was talking to Kelly last weekend, she was telling me something that most top agents like all of you don't do much anymore. And that is, you don't waste cold calls. When you know they bought it from somebody else, when you know that they have a relationship with somebody else, you don't waste time on cold calls when your manager says to you, take this. And Kelly, I'd like you, because I think it's a great way to kick this off, how you take a cold call, turn it into an impossible listing that is a really hard sell, and sell it. So can you share that story with us?
Sure, and thank you for having me on, and thanks to all the panelists. Great information share. It's wonderful to hear everybody's information, because some of you do things that I don't do, and I love hearing it all. But just like 3 weeks ago, got a cold call into the office, and the gentleman was asking, if I was interested in coming to see his property. And never heard of the guy, didn't know him at all. He said, I've seen your sign around, you sell high end. So I went and saw his property. It was a massive home, 10 bedroom en suites, right in the heart of town, a block away from the racetrack. And our market is very strange. We used to be a very sleepy town. In the 70s, you could buy houses, 70s and early 80s, for $69,000. Now it's, our average sale is just below 300, but we have many properties that go $2, $3, $4, $5 million. It's a pretty nutty town. It focuses around a racetrack. We have the country's oldest racetrack. And we have a big racing season every summer. So it really took off, I'd say, after 2008, lots of $1 million condos, lots of $1 million properties, high end, net worth, billionaires coming to our town for racing. So this gentleman, he told me straight off he was going to interview 3 different realty companies in town. And I said, fine, I'll come over and see the property. And the property really was, it's like 150 years old. It's beautiful, big, half brick, half cedar building with a massive kitchen. It was one of the old mansions in town, and really spectacular property. I have started to appreciate more of these older homes, and this one was really well built, well maintained. So when I sat with him, I said, look at, he goes, I'll do a one-time showing. And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. He wanted $3 million for the property. So I thought, oh my God, not an easy task. But I happened to have 3 buyers who told me specifically they were looking for a property like this. So I said, okay, I've got, 3 people, we'll put them on the list, and I'll, try my very best. And none of the people, fast forward, none of the people on my list were interested in the property. And it kind of floored me, because I was like, oh God, I guess I'm out on this. So I reported back to him and said, I don't, those 3 people are not interested. And he says, well, the other people are bringing in buyers. I'm like, okay, well, I'll stay in touch with you. So the next day, I did my phone calls, as Linda brought up, you got to stay in touch with your high-end folks, both buyers and sellers. They don't necessarily like Facebook and emails and text. It's the weekly or monthly phone call, keeping in touch with the market, being very personal. And even if you don't have any market information for them, just reaching out and saying, hi, I'm still here. I'm still looking for you, or, I still have your listing. I've done this week, and this is what happened in the marketplace. Just touching it out to them you have to do it. If you don't do it, you're not going to be in the business for long. So I reached out to one of my buyers who had been looking for a condo in town. And it took me quite a while to educate him on the market, because a 3-bedroom condo in Saratoga starts at like 1.4 million, like the ones right in the heart of town, where you open your door and the restaurants are like 1 block away. So that's what he wanted. He was looking. He originally thought they were $800,000 or $900,000, and he was way off on the price. So I had to educate him about that. And when we were talking about it, he says, you sound kind of different today. What's going on? And I was like, nothing. Everything's, fine. He goes, no, he goes, you sound a little off, which I thought was really funny, very perceptive. And I said, oh yeah. I said, well, I had this really cool property that I was trying to sell, and it was a one-time showing. And I told him what a one-time showing was. And I told him the 3 people that had told me they were looking for that property didn't want it. And he goes, well, what did you think of the property? I said, oh, I thought it was spectacular. It's a one-of-a-kind property. It's right in the heart of town. It's kind of like, it's like boom. It's one of those boom properties. And we kind of laughed. And he goes, well, tell me more about it. So I actually told this gentleman about this property, and he chartered a jet and flew up, and he's buying it. And I couldn't believe it because it was so out of left field. But before he came up to see it, some time had lagged, and the other brokers showing the property did not present an offer. So the gentleman who owned the property in the meantime called me, and he goes, look, I'm getting sick and tired of waiting. And I said, yeah, you got to put it on the market because it'll get more attention. It'll be more far reaching than just 3 or 4 brokers, calling people and, maybe emailing people. I said, you need to do that. He goes, well, I'll tell you what. He goes, come over and pitch me on why you think I should list with you. And I thought, okay. And he goes, like, when do you want to do this? Next week? I said, no, I'll come over tomorrow. And he was just like that. I go, just like that. So the guy was very informal. We had a lot of talks, in his living room and, sometimes on his front porch, and it was just really relaxing. And the street's really wide, and it's just a beautiful setting. So we're sitting there, and, he said, so tell me some compelling reasons why, you should get the listing of my property. And I said, well, I do sell a lot of high-end luxury properties. This is completely that. I said, but more important than me, I said, your property deserves to be represented by a company that really is far reaching, has a luxury division in it. I said, most real estate companies, several in town, are just very strong Saratoga town or Saratoga County companies. I said, and they don't have a luxury division. They just put them on the MLS and sell them. I said, our company, Howard Hanna, has a specific luxury division. And I said, this is that. And I said, it's not just where you're going to hit the MLS. I said, with the luxury division, you're going to hit across the United States and worldwide. And they said, it's not me, it's your property deserves that. And I said, don't you think that? And he did tell me, which I thought was quite shocking, I was the only agent out of the 3 that actually brought him market comparable information, which I was like, wow. And, we did discuss the price. I discussed, where I felt comfortable and where I was like a little nervous at the $3 million mark because of recent market trends. But in the end, and he did say he was going to list it with Howard Hanna. I was very proud of that because, it would have been a great listing. Before I had the chance to list it, my buyer came in and we negotiated, and we're under contract, and we're, very close to closing. But it was just very interesting because I was able to distinguish myself as an agent with the luxury. And the other tool that I did bring him was a 1-page color brochure that our local marketing team in Clifton Park had prepared for me. And it was a picture with the price of several high-end listings that I had sold. And, one of them was $2.5 million. Another property was just down the street from this property at $2 million. And it was just a 1-page, very simple, glossy, but just very simple of some of the properties I had sold. So I had the pedigree and the track record, and then I had the company with its marketing capabilities and tools to back it up. But I made it about his property, not just me getting the listing. It was your property deserves this. So don't limit yourself to a local regional corporation. go really worldwide, because it's a worldwide price. It's a huge property. It's, you know, there's a very few people that are going to be able to buy it. There's very few people that are going to look at it. I said, you really need to expand where you are focused. And then the other thing that I learned, which was really funny, especially in speaking with Helen, never assume that your buyers or your sellers are completely focused on that one property. There's, you know, be very vocal about what you're seeing in the marketplace, what you've seen in the marketplace, because you never know what's going to interest, especially the buyers. You know, this particular person really was focused on, I want a 3-bedroom condo, and now here he's buying, you know, a 10-bedroom mansion, which wasn't even in the price realm of where I thought. And the other folks that I had been looking for, they didn't want it at all. So it was kind of like a real switch up for me, and a real, you know, eye opener as to, you know, make sure you distinguish yourself, make sure you're talking to your buyers and telling them about other properties that are coming on the market that are out there, because you just never know what's going to tickle a buyer's fancy and make them jump off and strike.
You're muted, Helen.
What I was saying was, that's why we say buyers are liars unless you're communicating with them. But that goes back to that same question that we had. What is the best way to keep your listing once you've got it? What is the best way to work with a buyer? It is to be constantly in communication with them, and not using, as I said, you know, I wrote about the survey results, and survey results are out to the senior management team and a bunch of people right now, but the survey results are very clear. That NAR survey of the buyers and sellers says that their first choice of communication is to talk to somebody. And Howard Hanna's was very clear that our first choice is to text people. So what does that say? Right? That we in today's world have to be looking at it a different way. So let me bring you to Vera. I just lost Vera for some reason, but Vera, are you there, Vera? Okay, well, we're not going to go to, oh, there you are. Vera. So Vera's in the Mount Lebanon office, and it doesn't have anybody flying in usually to buy $3 million properties. Really comfortable average sales price.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, I can't. I'm having trouble.
Okay.
I'm in the office. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, Vera. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's broken, but yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. We hope we can hear you. Vera comes from the Mount Lebanon office, which normally has a market share of about 70%. We've actually had people that have registered complaints because they have to work with a Howard Hanna agent to get into the good listings. And last month might have had a 90% market share. They sold so many houses. But so Vera, if you can hear me, as an experienced person, she can't hear me. Okay, Vera, we're gonna go to Karen. I'm gonna ask a question of Karen, okay? Because Karen, Karen climbs mountains. You have to come off. You have to come off mute, Karen. And Vera, you have to go back on mute till we figure you out. Karen. So Karen climbs mountains. I mean, she doesn't climb hills. She climbs. What's the biggest mountain you climbed? Kilimanjaro.
Mount Everest. Base camp of Mount Everest.
Mount Everest, excuse me, Mount Everest. Okay, so there's nothing you can't do, right?
Thank you.
Tell us what you do to get buyers to buy your listings. How do you get them to write the offer?
Well, I think, yeah, if you're the listing agent, it's really easy because you know all about the house and you know that it is better than any house on the market. At least that's how I feel about my listings. They're always superior to anybody else's listing and they're priced correctly. And so I just need to let the buyer know of all the advantages that they will have by owning this house. And that way, I think it's pretty easy.
Well, what is key to knowing when a buyer is ready to write?
You know, mostly I think if they're asking a lot of questions, that's to me, that is an indication that they're interested.
So, just following up with him on those questions and having the answers for it. And again, giving them the benefit, or giving the buyer the benefit of living in this house.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Kelly, we can't hear you.
Okay, now better?
Yeah.
One strategy I've employed is I do personalized showings for all my listings, for all of them. Definitely 500,000 and up. So I get to meet buyers, and I understand, when they're ready and when they're not. Buyers are ready to buy when they understand the value of the house, especially in the marketplace. So when I'm working with specifically buyers, I make sure I take them around the market so that they can see and do comparables on themselves. And when I show them a property that makes sense with what the style, the size, the price, the location they're looking for, because they've seen other properties, they're really ready to strike.
Mm-hmm.
In a market where it's, very quick moving market, you have to move really quickly. And sometimes if the buyers can't get up to there, I'll run into houses, take short videos. Hey, this is different from this house. Here's 5 or 6 distinguishing features that you love. It's different from these 2 other houses, and it's $25,000 less expensive. You got to give them compelling reasons to help them if they're not with you. But if they're with you, you have to educate them on the market so they really feel comfortable pulling the trigger and buying.
Mm-hmm. So Karen, to go back to that, then you've got this buyer. So you're comfortable working with the buyer and the seller?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, but I know some agents aren't. Everybody else comfortable working with buyer and seller in dual agency? Yeah, good. Okay. All right. Good. So, so then how do you get the seller then to accept an offer from that buyer who's a little bit less than they want to be?
Well, I think it's the same the other way around. You have to be really enthusiastic to the seller and tell them how much they love their house and how well they will take care of their house moving forward, how this family is just a perfect fit, and just really work on the emotional part of it. And then I've probably have redone the market analysis with my listings. I go back every 2 to 3 weeks. And to do a new market analysis and let them know where they stand right now. Are we ready for a price reduction, or are we still good where we are? And I actually do the same thing as Bernie Cahoon does. I tell him that for every 7 to 10 showings, we need to get an offer. And if that's not the case, then the market is just not living up to our expectations. So, usually I can put them together.
Okay, good. Linda, anything you want to add to that? I think she's still on. I can't tell how many of our previous panelists are still on, but Vera, let's go to you. Turn off your mute.
I'm off. Patrick.
You're working now, okay?
Yeah, I'm in the office. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, she's in the office. That's why this is happening, I guess. So anyway, Vera, question for you. I can see others in the office too. I doubt Stephanie hangs those posters of little girls walking upstairs in her home, but maybe. But Vera, so I have one question. I gave you a little promo and Bill, talked about your office and, and you're a longtime agent with lots of experience, but in a market that has all price ranges. How do you do the most important thing? And some of you on the phone will remember a campaign we used to have. As a matter of fact, we had little stickers on the bathroom mirrors everywhere saying, ask for the order. So how do you ask for the order?
Oh, I start asking the minute I talk to the client on the phone. And I just never stop. I just, I ask for a kind of in a back end way, a price reduction. When I list it, I set that format. If I'm with a buyer, I ask for it all the time. That's my life, asking for the order. I never stop. And I don't do it with my family or friends. I drive them crazy. I mean, everybody knows. I always ask for whatever I want. I have no problem asking. And I think that when you practice it in life, it transfers into business. So,
So, but when you're do you ask for the order when you're showing the house?
Oh yeah, I'll say, do you guys want to buy this? What do you think? I mean, we sit down and we talk about it. You know, I even if I know they're not going to buy it, I ask them the same question so they can tell me why they're not, so we can remember that. The more you show people, the smarter they are. The more information you give them, the quicker the decision comes. I think that we as agents, there's very rarely do you have just a one shot, and we all do. We have what I call luck, and you have the one shot thing and it falls out of the sky and you spend your whole day saying, geez, where did that come from? But most parts, our job is educating the buyers and the sellers and other agents well. The more information we have, the more we share, the more we show property, the better the deal, the quicker the deal, boom, done. Then you don't really have to even say anything. When buyers want to buy, you just stand back and write the contracts if you've shown them as much as possible. And that's difficult in markets that are moving as quickly as our markets are moving right now, which I agree. I'm exhausted. I'm sure we all are. I'm sure that everyone on this Zoom meeting is exhausted right now because we're all running around and showing stuff constantly. I mean, I think I already showed 3 homes this morning, and of course I was showing one when that started, which I was in a junior beam house and I couldn't hear. But that's kind of how it rolls, you know. Just the more you do, and you have to be on it. You got to be quick. So
I think that's really key. You have to be on it. You have to be quick. How many of you also think that you have, you know, that you've got something that tells you that sort of click in your mind? They've got to do this now, not just because of competition, but, you know. Linda, anything you want to add to that? Turn off your mic. Okay, now we've lost Linda. Okay.
Oh,
Linda.
there.
Oh, there
Can
you
you
are.
hear me?
We can hear
Okay.
you.
The biggest thing is I usually can tell the expression on their faces and when they're excited about a property. And you have to make sure they have all the information and just go for it. That's me.
Good. So Stephanie Flood works in a market area that is a university town, Ann Arbor, Michigan. It is home to the biggest football place in the world, or biggest college football stadium. I think it's still the biggest. She works in an office which is right on Stadium Boulevard. And in normal Octobers, if you drive there, you will not understand why people have porta-johns in their front yards. But it's because they have long-term leases of their parking spaces in their backyards for people for the games, because it is just, you know, you think it takes control, but we still sell a lot of real estate at that time anyway. So Stephanie, you again are someone who is in a market that you have a mixture of, you know, every price range conceivable, as is common in university, but you have to speak a little different language sometimes with people. So what do you find is the best way to talk to buyers and sellers and get from them how they, you know, how they want to listen and to learn today? Do you ask that question, how they want to listen and learn?
Yes, I do. And I talk to both buyers and sellers. Communication is huge. Everyone has mentioned that. You really have to understand what your buyers are looking for and what your sellers are looking for, how they want to communicate, and they want to see you as the expert. But you also have to recognize that they have their way they want to do things too. So you can't overreach that. I guess you have to show them, you have to be gracious with everyone.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do with your marketing that brings buyers to your door, to your listings, and makes them want to buy before they get there?
So my superpower is that I cultivate and foster good relationships within the real estate community. So I always tell my sellers that some of the first people we need to sell your home to are other agents. I, of course, do the professional pictures. I have done maybe one Matterport. I use another video tour system, and I do the aerials, the drone photos. But sometimes, and especially with high-end listings, those pictures look okay, but you really can't see the grandeur of the listing. And so I have, prior to COVID, I did luncheon tours and I did wine and cheese. Now I do drawings, but I still have agents come through because sometimes a buyer will be looking on the internet and they'll think, well, that looks fine, but their agent sees it and sees this is the house my people have been looking for. And we once had a luncheon tour where an agent came for lunch. That's all she wanted. She had a buyer who did not want a condo, and we had a condo listing. And when that agent walked through, she recognized this is the place he should live, and he bought it. So I'm a big believer in not just inviting Howard Hanna agents, but agents from the entire marketplace.
That's good, because that was one of I had these like stringer questions and I haven't gotten them all answered yet. So in your marketplace, everybody, do agents tour? That's number one. Do agents tour today? Because we find a lot of times they don't.
Good ones do.
Good ones do. Good answer. Yeah. Is that true everywhere?
Yeah,
Karen?
same here, yes. And I'm actually disappointed, I have to say, that so many agents don't come to my open houses or to any brokers' open houses. You know, I've been doing brokers' open houses for probably the last 4 weeks, but even before COVID, it's just amazing how many agents don't go to brokers' open houses. I go to as many as I can because I'd like to educate myself on the market. And I'd like to be able to say, well, this house had this and this one had that, and that this is why this is a better house. So I'm really surprised that, you know, probably the younger agents or the newer agents don't feel that they need to educate themselves.
I think that's part of it, perhaps, but I think also, some of us in the business always like to blame the newer, younger agents for not doing what we did. But in this case, I think it's also that their clients aren't doing it. And actually yesterday, a couple of weeks ago, I recommended to a newer agent with a high-end client that they could not continue to just go look at a house here and there. They had to go see the market. It didn't matter if they hated everything, but they had to get an understanding, going back to what Vera said, of educating people. And they saw like 5, 6 houses yesterday. All right. And after, they thought it was really beneficial to it. It was also beneficial to the agent, because today we don't go to see houses before the client. They're as intelligent as we are, because they don't want to see houses. We don't see them, you know? And so I do think touring is important. I think it's one of those keys. Anybody else? You know, you have smaller areas. Linda's not on anymore. You know, they don't have a ton of agents there, so I don't know how they tour there. But that goes to the question of earlier, I was going to ask Ernie, who jumped off, about wallpaper, because he had great wallpaper behind him this morning. But more importantly than his wallpaper is when you go on listing appointments at the high end, are you saying that people should be making a lot of changes to their houses? Does that offend them? I mean, how do you get them to do those things that you want them to do with their house?
So I actually will wait for them to say something first, if possible. So I'm not the one, you know, knocking the house down. So, and many times I think people say to me, is there anything we should do? And then I'll say, well, now that you ask, if this would be good to do, or that would be good to do, especially to neutralize, because I'd like to get you as much money as the market will bear. In some items will just bring you more money.
I'd like to jump in too and say I do a combination of things. I sometimes will have a stager come, so then they can be the bad guy and say, you know, you need to take care of this or that. But the other thing, last year when I had a high-end listing, it had a lot of dated wallpaper. And I just called it out. I was the third agent. They'd been listed for 3 years, I think. And I really listened to what they had to say. We priced it and we offered a credit toward having the wallpaper removed. And I was the agent who was there for the buyers to come. So I was the one who got to sell it. So a combination of things.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm looking to see if we have any other questions, if they're not all mine, before we wrap up. But that was one of my big questions, how we get them to tour and how we get people out in the marketplace doing what they need to do. So anybody else have any questions? If you give us to them now, I think we got that in line. I will say in Ohio, at least, Ohio, their tours, they offer a lot of food. I used to joke and say, tell me what you're serving so I can make sure I can decide where I want to go today on tour in Ohio. And gift cards, et cetera. A lot of other areas had stopped that. I'm not sure that makes a difference though. I think it goes back to people just relying on the internet a lot. And if we expect our clients to see houses, we have to see them and whet their appetite. Now that's not the houses that are selling in 3 days over asking price. Those are the houses that are sitting that we need to sell so we can really whet people's appetite with good stuff about it. Any other questions for anybody? Well, anybody else want to add anything before we leave? I would love to continue this discussion, and I'd love to hear from those of you on the phone. If you would like to be a panelist for us, if you would like to share some information, if you have an idea for us as a topic, it would be great to hear. You're allowed to contact me directly if you want. There are some people that know that and do, other people that don't. Somebody the other day was concerned because they contacted me. They thought they were going to get in trouble. I'm not sure why, but they weren't going over anybody's head. They really just had a problem that they wanted to get another opinion on. So it's okay to, what I refer to as forum shop with me. But the other thing I would say to you is please, please support each other. If you don't support each other by touring each other's properties, if you don't support each other by calling each other and asking questions about them, if you don't tell your clients about those houses first, because what I did hear from a lot of panelists is how important it is when they're working with another Hannah agent, greatest control and where you believe you get the most money in many cases for your seller and the best deal for your buyer, meaning everybody is fair, is when you're controlling the job, okay? When you're doing both sides. But also that should be true when it's a Hannah deal, that you can rely on each other to work on the home inspection and to develop things together. So the final thing is, because earlier Melanie told us that she gets great advantage. She said for newer agents trying to break into the luxury market, always wear your name tag, et cetera, et cetera. Linda told us a great story about, selling a house to somebody's cleaning lady. So if you don't own one of these, which most of you do because you were in Champions Club, you either got them or are getting them. They're also available on the Bop Shop if you'd like to buy them. So I have been wearing them. I have this one. I have another one also that we sent out to all of our employees. And I'm wearing them now because it will give me either better service or worse service. I can't tell, but in most cases better. And lots of things coming in now saying thank you to all of you, that you're amazing, and you are. And I especially love the opportunity. Some of you I talk to, somewhat regularly. Sometimes I don't see you as much. And so I really enjoyed that opportunity. So thank you all for sharing with us today. And if you want anything, just share it back to us and we'll share it to the group. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks
Helen.
for the great
Thank you.
Shannon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.